Hey everyone, welcome back to Built in Ohio. And Denise, thank you so much for joining. Thanks for being with us and sharing a little bit more about your work, what you've built, and a pretty big topic, which is workforce, that is going to have huge implications and huge impacts for the state and growing our tech opportunities. But to start, maybe if you could just tell us a little bit about Max and what it is that you all do.
Great. Well, thanks, Chris, for inviting me. So Max is in the business of upskilling and reskilling anyone, really. We used to just say IT professionals, but now we say anyone because IT is in every organization. It's not just IT organizations. And, the hot topics today are everything from Microsoft Excel and how do you do pivot tables to cybersecurity, to Kubernetes, to Agile, to AI, to robotics, and we've been doing it all. Our classes are delivered both on site at our customer sites, in our facilities in Mason, Ohio, and virtually. So the virtual technology has that come a long way where we can actually, take control of a student's computer and see what they're doing. So we don't even have to look over their shoulder anymore. We have a virtual look over their shoulder. Yeah. So the technology is fantastic. The curriculum's fantastic. We do both what I call open enrollment classes, where we actually have a schedule that folks can go to our website and say, oh, there's an Excel class going on next week. And there's a Azure class starting July or January 9th. And, I can do one of those and I just put onesie, twosie people into those classes. Or really what's evolved is our clients are asking us to do private classes. And those classes could be customized. They could just be off the shelf. We just need a group of 12 people need to take this class. Can you cut it down instead of 5 days to 3 days? And we work with them to cut that down. So private classes have become a really big deal where we can customize that solution. Our instructors, and I was looking ahead at some of your questions, but some of our instructors, we have some instructors that are employed by us. However, most of our instructors now, because of the range of technology that we cover, are specialists in their field. So let's say they're a consultant and they specialize in cybersecurity, and they have a certain specific area in cybersecurity that they're a specialist in. Those are the people that we bring into our customers. So over the years, we've been able to vet these folks, and we work with them on a contract basis. But at least our clients don't have to go find them. We've already found them, identified them, vetted them, and kind of maxized them to work in our industry. And we've also trained the trainers so that we make sure that they know how to teach. So, and then the other thing that we started doing about 10 years ago, really a little over 10 years ago, is we started doing career changing boot camps, where we started because of our clients were saying, and we'll get into this later, they were saying, we can't find enough people. We can't get enough people from the universities. We can't do this and that. So we first started with our clients upskilling their own employees through, let's say, a 10-week, we didn't even call them boot camps then. We called them, developer apprentice programs, and where we helped them upskill their own people that had already drank the Kool-Aid, or we helped them recruit and train people to go into IT. We started with coding. Now we do cybersecurity, and we do what we call an agile business analyst. So that gives you probably a long-winded story of what we do.
Yeah. And I guess kind of a two-part question is, what is more on the client side versus the one-off of, like, if I want to register and kind of up my, Excel. So what's a client? And I ask that because I guess the more important second question is, what are the tech skills that, these employers that are most on demand that you're seeing today? And then, like, where do you see that kind of like growing or shifting into in the next year or so?
So the biggest demand that we see from employers are, it's interesting. They're looking for, we're seeing a lot of agile skills, so they want the methodologies. They want to be more efficient. They want to grow those, I used to call those soft skills versus hard skills. And so we're seeing a lot in Agile and Scrum and those areas. And then probably the next hot area is cybersecurity. Anything security related, cloud related, containerization like Kubernetes and those type of methodologies, or those kind of software methodologies, are also really hot growing areas. So I think we're going to see more in, security, definitely. I think we've barely touched the surface there. And that's such a broad area. When people say, do you do cybersecurity? I'm like, well, yeah, but let's be specific about that.
Yeah.
The same thing with AI. I mean, AI is huge, so sometimes we talk to a customer and they say, no, we just want to do queries. And then other ones want to do heavy analysis and be predictive about it, right? And others want to, learn Tableau so that they can show the data better. So, we're always kind of digging in. We kind of look at ourselves as very consultative. We don't want, I always say we want to be relational and not transactional. So we'd almost rather not have a client just go to our website and pick a class. We want to talk to them. We want to make sure it's really what they want.
Yeah. And, because Max has been around, I have down since 1998. Is that correct?
I know. I started when I was 16.
Wow. And
no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that, as I think of 98, that's, you have the .com, time, you have the 08, 09 recession, COVID,
9/11.
Yeah, 9/11. So you have the macro kind of economic trends, but you also have, technology, where I'm holding up my iPhone for those watching on YouTube, and smartphones didn't exist, and there's been this incredible wave of technological, evolution and revolution in some cases. What has that been like navigating it? And maybe like my larger question on this one would be, how do you stay on top of all of these trends? Because you mentioned Agile and cybersecurity being, the kind of the two hot ones at the moment, but I suspect, every few years there's a new hot one that's coming up, and it just shifts so rapidly. And for even people in technology, it's incredibly difficult to stay on top. But, you're at the forefront of making sure that people know how to interact with the emerging tech.
Right. And that's I'll try to answer all those questions, and you may have to guide me a little bit.
Sure.
But,
that wasn't a good question, because there's
that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
We're being very conversational, and I appreciate that. So, when you think about what it was like in 1998, it was all about bricks and mortar. We were doing, this is probably before your time, Chris, but the big thing was getting your MCSE certification in Microsoft. And it was all about having training organizations in your location, because all training was done at our facility. There was no virtual training. There was, basically it wasn't like it is today, where you can take a class virtually from almost any provider in the world. It was all about local. We've navigated, when you talk about the economy and things like that, I think that, I was looking at a podcast the other day, and it was about a lighthouse. And I thought that's kind of how we've been. We've been steady, and we've had a great, strong structure that has allowed us to weather all kinds of situations. So the first big shock to us was 9/11, and or maybe even 2000, when everything was going to shut down.
Yeah.
Remember?
Y2K.
Right. Y2K. So, we were like, okay, is our software going to work? Companies were like all ready, and nothing happened. Right. So we remember even doing training around that. Like, what happens? What are the contingency plans? How do you plan for this? Those kind of things, risk type classes. So we have been very fortunate that we have been guided by our customers. And when I say we've been relational versus transactional, we haven't tried to grow super fast. We've just basically serviced our customers. So if our customers, like, I'll sit down with a CIO next week, or in January, the beginning of January, of a very large organization. I'll say, what are your plans for the next 2 years? What should I be looking at? And a lot of time, I remember someone at P&G years ago said ITIL to me. I don't know if you know what ITIL is. It's a service management methodology. And that was probably 15 years ago. And she said to me, you should be doing ITIL. I didn't even know what it was. And now it's a big part of our business. So it's our customers that educate us. I remember one client saying, can you do Kubernetes? And I'm like, yeah, we'll do Kubernetes. I wasn't really sure what it was, but I said, give me, a year, give me 6 months. And we are able, because of our network of trainers and our network of relationships over these 25 years, we've been able to build those relationships with technology organizations that are specialists in those areas. So they're staying up in containerization. They're staying up with cloud technologies. They're staying up with AI and data. They're staying up with coding methodologies or agile methodologies. So we basically rely on them, those instructors or those partners, to educate us. And then we have them work with our clients to help us come up with what are the right classes. There's no way that Denise and her staff can know what's going to happen, but we have our ear to the ground. We're always talking to those customers. So did I answer your questions?
No, you did. And I think that was a great answer. And also, as you had previously shared about your instructors and being practitioners that aren't, full-time max employees, because the more Ohio X as a trade association gets invited and gets to, have and be in the conversations on a kind of a statewide basis of, workforce and education and tech, it really is. It can be incredibly complicated because it's this nexus of government, of industry, of academia, and how you've built your business of using the people on the ground that have those
Right.
actual skills and are at the forefront of that specific technology. It's those people that should be, whether it's, teaching or setting
Exactly.
your curriculum, or instead of having, a group in Columbus that aren't technologists kind of setting, hey, here's workforce strategies. Well,
Exactly.
everything you just mentioned, do they know anything about it?
Right. Like just this week, we had discussions with clients around Linux,
Mhm.
around cybersecurity, and around SQL. So not Microsoft, but just SQL Server, database.
Yep.
And in each of those situations, we had a specialist that was working with the customer that is also a trainer for us that works with us to help vet what that client needs. So we learn right along with the client what's possible, or learning from the client and the instructor. Like, I didn't know that we're on Rev 9 for Linux, but now I do, you know.
So kind of that's probably a good segue into something else I wanted
Okay.
to pull on and talk about, which is tech cred. And tech cred's one example for those listening of the state of Ohio being really forward thinking and knowing that, reskilling and upskilling employees and technologists and maybe people that are in different sectors and industries but want to make a career change. And so tech cred is a government, which I know people in government hate to call it a government program because it sounds like a big bureaucratic thing, but it's a pretty incredible tool for businesses and for employees to reskill and upskill and help them along in that. So maybe Denise, because you're an expert in this and you help companies not just for your own kind of transactional, as you mentioned, but relationship of educating on that side,
Right.
because this is an incredible resource out there. So if you could just tell us a little bit about tech cred and why it should matter to companies.
Yeah, I am so excited about tech cred. I can't even. I want to talk about it all the time, and my director of business development is like, just calm down. So I have seen the state of Ohio have multiple programs over all these years, and some of them have been so difficult for companies to navigate that they just give up. They just don't do it. Fortunately, Tech Cred is one of the best programs I have ever seen in the state of Ohio. And I'm amazed at how many organizations don't know about it. So basically, Tech Cred is a program that reimburses Ohio companies or companies that have a location in Ohio. They don't even have to be based in Ohio to upskill or reskill Ohio residents. So as long as they have employees, if they have an employee that lives in Kentucky or Indiana, that doesn't qualify. But basically, if they have any Ohio residents, they can be reimbursed up to $180,000 per year. And it is so easy to use. So the first time you go into tech red, it's a little kludgy, but once you get over that first time, it's very easy. And we now have companies that are small, medium, and large size organizations. And I don't like to just say companies, it's organizations, because we just have, we have government, municipalities, we have cities also taking advantage of tech red. So just because they're a city or a county doesn't mean that they can't take advantage of it. And so we have, so one example is a small municipality in Ohio that usually what they do is they contact us and they say, well, we're not sure about this. And we say, okay, well, just, do you want to put one person through a little Excel class for $350 and see if you get reimbursed? And they're like, yeah. And so we do that, and we help them, and they get reimbursed, and they pay for the class, they send their paperwork to the state, and they get a check. Wow. We had a very, very large enterprise organization that really wasn't sure. And I said, well, just try it out. They did. They got a check. They couldn't figure out how to cash the check. It was at a bank because it wasn't, they get this check for $30,000 and they didn't know what to do with it. I mean, that was the funniest example. And then we have medium-sized companies that are now, like, there's a medium-sized manufacturer that we've been working with, and they did not have any budget, period, to train I'll call it their power users, so their office users in Microsoft Office and Excel, those kind of technologies. Zero budget. They said, you're on your own. There's e-learning out there. Just go ahead and, train yourself, go at it. There's a lot of free stuff. You shouldn't have to have training, but that didn't happen. So they found out about tech red, and we started training their employees. To date, they've probably trained over 100 people in their organization, and the feedback and the morale, within these organizations has just gone up because the employees feel like the organization's investing in them, which they are. And talk about we're talking about retention. Yep. So I'm not just talking about end users, but those end users, or what I call the power users, are the people that may become the technology people, but they are technology people, right? Yep. Because they're doing Power BI and they're doing, all these other, the tools, the IT tools are becoming easier to use so that everyone becomes an IT professional, right? So, yeah.
And so I guess to kind of, as I was taking some notes, it's a reimbursement from the state of Ohio for these reskilling and upskilling, but basically credentialing courses, right? So it could be things like Excel or others, right?
Yeah, I think some of those words, and we've given the tech cred folks a lot of feedback. So that some of these words like credentials does not mean that it's a degree from a university. A credential is just a broad category. It could be a certification, or it could not be a certification. A credential is just a certificate of completion.
So it's like a continuing education of sorts, it seems like.
It doesn't even have to be that formal. I mean, someone takes an Excel class at Max for one day, and we give them a certificate of completion. They don't have to pass a test. They don't have to do anything. All they need is to show that they completed that class and they paid for it. Yeah. And they send that to the state, and the state reimburses them.
What's the
same thing if they take an Azure class? Yeah. So they take a class in Azure cloud computing or cloud development. Yeah. And that's a 5-day class, and they pay $2,500, let's say, for that class. Wow. And they take the class. Max sends them a certificate of completion. They don't have to take an exam. No exams. So I think everyone gets, it has to be this big thing. Yeah. And it's not. It's just a certificate of completion that they get automatically from Max anyways. Yeah. And they then send that with their paid invoice, and they get reimbursed. The reimbursement is up to $2,000 per credential,
Okay.
or I would rather say per class.
Yeah.
Because that's all it is a
Yeah.
class. So if, for example, that class was $2,500, the client only pays $500.
It's a pretty good deal. And
Pretty good
you
deal
said it
for a
was
paycheck.
$180,000 per employer per year. Is that correct?
Say that again.
It's $180,000 per employer is it per year then?
Per year, yes.
Okay. Yeah. And if it's 2,000 a class, that's a lot of potential employees that you could reach, right?
Right. Or if the classes are less expensive, like $1,000 a class.
Yeah.
Or $500
Right.
a
Yeah.
class.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really depends. Right.
That's
Exactly.
awesome. Well, we'll link into the show notes for people watching and listening, so they can check out Tech Cred and kind of go directly there. But of course, Denise, you and your team are experts on this, and I know, as you said, relationships and helping companies and organizations too. You mentioned the municipality, so Denise, as I think of Tech Cred across the state, you're like the go-to because you're the expert. So for people listening and watching, check it out because it is a resource. And as someone myself who has worked in government, to your point about the amount of people that don't know it, I've worked on things where you feel like you're talking about it day in and day out, year over year, and then you go to some group and talk about it and no one knows it. And so it's a big state. There's a lot of employers out there, a lot of employees, of course. And so, yeah, the work to keep telling people is incredibly important. So thank you for that because, it's making our businesses and employees more competitive.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously I'm all about the state of Ohio becoming successful and becoming a tech hub. And it's such an amazing investment that the governor's office is providing. And we might as well take advantage of it. It's basically our tax dollars at work.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's talk about kind of you mentioned your passion for Ohio Tech kind of as a last topic before we get into our kind of fun questions. But your passion for tech, you mentioned Max has been around since 1998. What do you think the next 5 or 10 years looks like for tech in Ohio as we have this opportunity? Intel's coming to the state. There's a Silicon Heartland momentum and excitement. What does it look like? And what do you think is maybe a key or two that collectively, whether it's industry, we need to keep in mind in order to kind of realize this opportunity?
Well, I mean, 5 to 10 years is a long time in technology. Yep. So I always like to say, can we talk like 3 years? Or whatever? But I think that we have a tremendous advantage in Ohio. I think we have all the right stuff. We have the right government. We have the right people. I'm really super excited about the potential here in Ohio versus anywhere else really in the United States. Mm-hmm. It's affordable. We've got a lot of amenities, other than sometimes the weather is a little funky, but, for the most part, I'm really excited. I think what we really need to keep in mind is to look at all the programs that are available. There's Tech Cred, there's Jobs Ohio. Mm-hmm. A lot of folks, I was just at a dinner last night with some female CEOs and, they didn't know about Jobs Ohio. And Jobs Ohio is a tremendous asset to our state. The programs like Tech Cred or IMAP or WIOA, or there's so many ways to get training paid for. So focusing on employees and focusing on upskilling and reskilling them. The other thing that we're starting to see as a trend are companies, I'm trying not to name names, but there's a company in logistics in this area that has decided to upskill their existing employees. So taking people that already understand their business and turning them into coders, because then they've used the applications within that organization. They understand it versus bringing in a contractor or a new person that doesn't even understand that business. So that is another trend. So I think being open-minded and looking at alternatives to employee retention, employee skilling, I think the key things for us to be successful.
Yeah, and I think that's the perfect kind of ending for that part
Mhm.
of our conversation because, and that example that you shared, especially because as you said, who knows a business better than someone that's actually been in it and been doing it and been doing, starting from at 18 or whatever age, but then we every company would rather have that employee that is working for them for 30 or 40 years. And to
Right.
your point of the resources like Tech Cred that help continuing education or give classes, that's all part of retention and also, advancing people within a company because they're the ones that have known it versus, a
Absolutely.
random consultant off the street that, needs 6 months to get up and running. The solution and the real problem solvers are already there. So let's just get them those extra tools that they can then, continue helping build that company out. So I
Right.
love that. That's a
Yeah.
fantastic example to share, and I think it encapsulates again what tech credit and a lot of these things matter,
Right. Right.
and why they
And
matter.
one more point as you
Yeah.
bring that up, it's also the loyalty
Yep.
that, that I know people don't like it when I say this, but I like to use the word sticky. I think that it makes that employee stick to the company
Yeah.
and feel not just obligated, but loyal
Yeah.
because it's a two-way street.
Yep.
I mean, employees today are looking for meaningful relationships, right?
Yep.
They don't just want a paycheck anymore. They want to know that they're contributing. They want to know that they matter. And wow, what a great way to do that by investing in them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's a
Just-
perfect way to end. So we'll
Okay.
launch into our last part of the show, which are a few fun questions that we ask all of our guests. And so it's great to get different perspectives from, a CEO from Cincinnati, or maybe a researcher from Northeastern Ohio, or a tech exec in Central Ohio. But the first one, Denise, is, and I love this because you mentioned you just had dinner with fellow CEOs. So I'm
Uh-huh.
sure a kind of an answer, or, this was probably part of conversation. But what's a recent challenge or thing you are focused on as a CEO that you've been focused on working to solve? Not the mission of Max at hand, but in your role as a CEO, what's a recent thing you've been focused on? And as we're about to head into a new year, and as this gets published, it'll be in January. Maybe what's something top of mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, this is just really, I didn't even think about this in advance, so it's totally top of mind. I think for me, as a CEO, I'm focused all the time. And even though I think I'm focused on it all the time, it's always a thing,
Yeah.
which is transparency and openness. And, like how much is enough, and what do our employees need? What do our employers need? What, um, I, I'm an open book. Just, but what is enough? And what is the type of transparency that we need to be as CEOs
Yeah.
about our business and where the business is going? And how do we make sure that our employees feel good and solid and that they know that, our company is going to be around, here we are 25 years, but we always have people that are like, are we okay? Are we? So how do we make sure that they feel comfortable and solid? Because I think every employer, whether you're a small employer, like Max, or a huge employer like P&G, is always looking at how do we retain people? How do we make sure that they feel good about where they are?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the transparency and openness fits in your, other things we've talked about today of the stickiness and keeping people around, part of the team, bought in,
Yeah,
and then also the relationships and being
yeah,
around for 25 years isn't a
yeah.
mistake, especially in a world like technology where
Yeah,
everything's moving
it's
pretty
crazy.
quick.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So second question, what is a favorite read, listen, or watch? So this could be a book, a podcast, or a show, something
Yeah.
you enjoy for fun at night, or, it's a business related topic for you.
Yeah. So this just came up recently because we're talking about starting a book club at Max. But, I am rereading or re-listening to The Seven Habits.
Hmm.
And it's great because I just have it on, one of my pod things. and I could listen to it in the car. I can listen to it for 15 minutes in the airplane. I can, and that has been really important to me to re-listen to that, even though I don't even remember probably when it came out. I read the book and I thought, okay, I got this, right?
Yeah.
But now I realize I don't have it, and I really need to reread and re-listen and rethink about that, because it's a journey. And then just the silly things that I might do in the evening just to unwind is I love watching Modern Family. I know it's probably just a silly thing, but it's just, one of those dumb things that I love, and it just cracks me up. And so that's one thing.
Modern Family is one of our family favorites as well. And yeah, it's like the perfect decompressant. Although personally, I think the shows with when the kids are younger are a bit better than when they get a bit older.
I know. I'm like, they're too old now.
I know. Which is a common sitcom problem of, the kids just get too old and it kind of changes dynamics and stuff. Third one is, if you had $100 million to solve a problem, this could be philanthropy, it could be starting a company, a big problem. What would it be? What would you tackle?
I would probably tackle homelessness. Especially with children, I just feel like, educating children, homelessness, poverty, food insecurities. I think, our kids it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of that, more than we realize. Yeah. And that would be what I would tackle. Definitely.
Yeah, that's a great one, especially, all times of the year, but especially as, winter months and cold brings it to light even more. Last two. And so sometimes these are kind of the same, but the first one is your favorite place in Ohio. Where's when you're looking for a good day, where do you go?
Oh, a good day. Well, one thing that I've traveled to that a lot of people don't know about, to me, it's like tech cred, is the Wilds.
Okay. Yeah.
Heard of the Wilds?
Yep.
Okay. That is an amazing, fun place to go to with your family or just yourself. It's a amazing place that is I wouldn't even want to call it a zoo. It's like a safari in the middle of Ohio, which is just a major surprise. Another place that I would go, I love Alt Park here near Hyde Park in Cincinnati. I love the parks. The Cincinnati parks have been amazing, and their upkeep, and they're beautiful, beautiful parks. And I find myself going into that whole forest bathing kind of idea where I can basically walk there from my house and be in the woods and just chill out. Yeah. So that would be what I would do.
Yeah. Two great ones. And then our final one, what is your favorite meal in Ohio? So you're going out for a celebratory dinner, or just, it's your Friday place that you always go.
Well, we've already talked about Coffee Emporium. So Coffee Emporium is my favorite coffee shop. Probably my favorite restaurant where I would want to go for a meal would be Red Feather. And since you were just talking about Oakley, it's right there in Oakley. And it's a fantastic small restaurant, and an amazing staff and amazing chefs. So that would be my
that is a new one on my list now.
Good. Now you know.
Yeah, I love asking these questions, because then I get like a running, iPhone notepad of all the different places I got to check out. But Denise, it's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed the conversation, as always. As a final piece, how can people learn about Max? How can they connect with you? And if people want to reach out or just learn more.
Yeah, LinkedIn is a great way to reach me. My email is dbartick, BARTICK, at maxtrain.com, or just go to our website, maxtrain.com.
Okay. Well, Denise, thanks so much for joining again. Always enjoy the conversation, and thanks for all you're doing. Workforce and training is that's the key. None of this is possible without the people, and you're working on it every day. So thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for listening. Appreciate you tuning in, but please be sure to check out Max connect with Denise on LinkedIn, and we appreciate you being here with us. So have a great day, everyone, and we will talk to you all soon.